Everybody, my name is Jaguar Wright, but most of you know that. And welcome to the Jaguar Wright Show. But more importantly, welcome to a really important conversation with a very amazing young woman that I'm enjoying getting to know. And even in the controversy of everything that's happening and going on regarding the case and regarding what's happening to her very real life and marriage, we wanted to take the time to make sure that everybody had all of the facts. There's been a lot of things that have been misled, misconstrued. And I decided, why not just open up the platform so you guys can hear it from Demoree herself? Because that's the most important thing. So often in these times, our voices are cut off, we're silenced, false voices are speaking louder than real ones. And everybody knows we stick to the real around here. So, hey, Demoree, welcome. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well considering everything that has happened. Thank you for having me here today.
Well, thank you for reaching out. I consider it a big honor. Ever since I won Defender of Freedom, it's not just something that was given to me that I cherish. It's something that I want to use to do, God's work and really help people. So I want to thank you because you're going to be like the first interview that I'm doing since then. So this is a big deal. And there's so many people on the platform that I already know are going to jump behind your story and support it. So let's just get started with a little background on you, if that's okay.
Of course.
My first question for you, can you tell us a bit about your upbringing, your relationship with your mother, who happens to be the CEO of Rock Nation, Desiree Perez? How was your relationship with her before then and now?
Yeah. So I was born in New York as a little baby, 9 months. My grandfather had to take over to raise me because my mother was incarcerated and dealing with the criminal justice system for the crimes that she committed in the early 90s. Moved to Miami, Florida with my grandfather, who raised me with his partner, his long term partner, in Miami, Florida. Went to school in private and public school. Uh, only spoke Spanish, learned how to speak English at like 7 years old as an American. Yeah, because he only spoke Spanish. So I had to learn in the school system and all that. Raised very humble, right? In humble beginnings with my grandfather. Uh, and my mom would, visit when she can, but at the time she was incarcerated and dealing with all that stuff. And then at the same time, I think it wasn't until the age of 13 or 14 that I actually lived in the same home as her, when she was able to kind of get a home, get out, have, some type of stability. And even then, she would travel back and forth. So my foundation and really where I was raised is my grandfather, and I'm grateful to him.
You sound like you have a really wonderful relationship with him, and I want to get into that a little bit more later. But also, how long has the relationship with your mom been strained at this point?
I haven't seen my mom since December 25th, 2023. That's the last time that I saw her physically. The last time I spoke to her was December 30th, 2023, when she said that I was dead to her. So that was the last time that I spoke to her.
She said you were dead to her.
Yes.
Well, why?
That was due to my husband Javon's first arrest that happened on December 30th, 2023. My mother and I, our relationship has always been strained in the sense that since I was raised by my grandfather and his long term partner, who she disliked for different reasons that I don't need to address here. Uh,
Family
one,
business.
right, family business, right? I don't want to drag other people's business on here to respect my grandfather's history. But, she had tension with my grandfather's partner who raised me, who I actually called mommy in Spanish. So as you can imagine, that rubbed her the wrong way. But again, this is somebody that at 9 months, right, was feeding me, taking care of me, taking me to school with my grandfather.
First steps, first
Exactly.
losing of the teeth. Yeah.
So I developed that bond and that love for her and obviously for my grandfather. And so at 13, being forced to, okay, now I have my life together, come move with me. That's when the strain really started as a child and the trauma, because all I knew was my grandfather, which I call abuelo, and that's all I wanted to do is be with him. So that's kind of where the strain with her and I started, right? Because she forced me to move with her when she got her life together, and with my siblings, obviously. And then it was just, that was the real beginning, but then it was just like
So there
the
was tension, but there wasn't like escalation, just tension.
it was just tension, debates, arguments. I'm very different than my siblings in the sense
Well,
that,
how many siblings do you have?
yes. So we're five from her. We all
Oh,
have different, yeah, we're five. We all have different fathers. I have a sixth sister who's my stepfather's daughter. So we're
okay.
six in total because I don't count her as like not my sister.
Yes.
So I would say we're six in total. Um, And I would say I'm different in the sense, since I was raised by my grandfather and he's a very independent, free thinker, uh, doesn't conform, can't be controlled type of personality. That was the problem, because going from that for 13 years to then being under the same roof as somebody who's a Virgo, who's a narcissist, who feeds off control, as you can imagine, as a teenage young lady in high school, dealing with the trauma of my childhood, now coming into this environment, the personality differences, the rebuttals, and things like that. So there was tension, there was arguments, there was problems, but it wasn't at the level that it is right now.
And just to be clear, I know you said that your siblings, you all have different paternal links, but were you ever involved with your paternal father and his family in any way?
No. So unfortunately, I call him my sperm donor, because in all reality, my grandfather raised me, and then my stepdad, who I have, my maiden name is Perez because of him, stepped in that sense. So I never really had a relationship with him. He unfortunately has a history of selling drugs, being involved with the cartel in Puerto Rico, was in and out of prison since the age of 8
Oh,
from
okay.
Puerto Rico. And as you can imagine, when he got with my mother, that wasn't a good mix, right? Two people on the streets from New York,
Yeah.
getting involved in wrong things. They weren't in the position mentally, emotionally to raise a child, which is me.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful that my grandfather stepped in, because my biological father was very much involved in the whole cartel business and all that, and is
Got it.
currently serving a life sentence as we speak. Uh,
Oh.
so I do not have a relationship with him. He attempted when I was a young child,
Hmm.
uh, but then just disappeared. And sometimes would try to touch base here and there,
Yeah.
but not the effort that you would expect from a grown man. So I
Yes.
just left it at that, since I didn't really feel I didn't have the emptiness that most people feel,
Well,
because
God gave you what you needed.
yeah,
He
my
gave you what you
grandfather
need. Yeah.
really, yeah, he stepped up to the plate. So that's the history with my biological dad. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, outside of your maternal family and now your in laws, it's been a very quarantined family environment for you for most of your life.
Yeah, I grew up with a lot of trauma, because my biological dad, my parents went through the, oh, she's my daughter, no, she's my daughter. And this is public record. He tried to file for custody and take me away from my
Oh.
grandfather. That was traumatic for me
So
at 10.
this is just your whole childhood was wrapped around chaos.
Yes, I grew up in a very, unfortunately, with a lot of minorities, right? Hispanics, and in the Black community, unfortunately, that tends to be a repeated cycle, right?
Yeah.
Young parents having kids too young, growing up in the wrong environment, and it's a repeated cycle. So I went through a lot of trauma growing up. I went through a lot of toxicity, right?
Yeah. And
And
conflict,
conflict,
emotionally, physically, spiritually, conflict.
conflict, yes.
And one last thing, just for reference, are you the youngest or the oldest?
I'm the youngest girl.
Okay.
The youngest is the boy. I'm the youngest
Okay.
girl.
So you're the baby girl. Okay. So then
Yeah.
there was another child that came after you.
Yes, my
Okay.
little brother.
Okay. So, and how's your relationship with your siblings now?
I don't have a relationship, unfortunately, now with my siblings. I think that my mom has poisoned them against me in the sense that I never wanted to involve them in the issues that her and I were going through.
Mm-hmm.
She involved them. And I know when we get to the rest of the interview and we go through timelines, I'll be
Yeah.
able to emphasize the part where she involved them. But
Right.
I did my best to try not to involve them because I'm the type of person that if you're my sister, my relationship with you has nothing to do with my relationship with my mother. That should be two different independent things. That's how I think. Unfortunately, that's not how everyone thinks, right? And
Right.
so, in my situation with my siblings, and I love them and I understand, I'm not mad at them about
Yeah.
this. Obviously, I miss them. I wish that they could communicate with me. I wish that they could hear my story and understand. And that's part of the reason I wanted to speak up too, because I think they have only been presented one side of the story, which is my mother's. They've only been presented with fake stuff, and they haven't really had the opportunity to really hear my voice. I know that they tried a few months ago, but when I was dealing with the beginning of this case, I was afraid. I didn't know who I could trust, who I could talk to. So I just, I didn't really respond. And I waited for the MB6 news to come out for them to see a little snippet of the Baker Act video, for them to get an idea, okay, that's not right what happened to her. And I thought that they would reach out, but they didn't. And I understand because at the end of the day, that's their mother, right? And they might not think like I do in the sense that it's two independent
There's
relationships.
one other thing there that I think we had spoken about when we were just, having our prep conversation. You said most of your siblings work for your mom.
Yes. So that's what I was going to get to. So there's
Yeah.
also the, I guess the compromise, right? Or the conflict of interest. I don't know how to
Well, yeah,
word that.
that's double compounded. Go
Yeah. The
against mom,
pressure.
lose your job. Go against mom, lose your job. That's a lot.
Go against mom, lose sensibility, security, lose all you ever knew. So
Yeah.
I can't blame them. They're all
No.
smart,
Yeah.
beautiful human beings, but I can't
Well,
blame them because
they're being
it's
held
their,
hostage by this situation as well.
yeah, yeah. And I can't blame them, right? Because you're dealing with somebody, a narcissist who's uh, controlling the narrative. She's had enough time to control it where they almost believe it. So all I could hope is that they come across this interview, they reach out. I'm at the stage of my life where I prioritize my peace
Yeah.
over anything. So I'm not reaching out because it's out there. I have strangers reaching out to me, showing compassion and feeling bad just off of the Baker Act video. I'm not asking you to go against my mother, but hey, sis, I'm sorry that that happened to you. I know you're not a drug addict because they know that. Something along those lines, right? Because if a stranger can do it, why couldn't you? So I'm at the point in my life that I prioritize my peace, and if they don't want the relationship, they don't want the conversation, that's fine. If they do, I welcome it with loving arms because at the end of the day, they're my siblings.
You want to know what's interesting, though, about everything that you said? If I were to put myself in their shoes to see what's happening to your life because you disagreed with your mother, that speaks volumes. Because what I've learned is when you have a gaslighting effort and campaign on your life, what people are watching is, hey, I don't want that to happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go through that. I'm going to stay out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's something that I'm going to ask everyone on the platform to keep in prayer for you, because you really shouldn't have to lose your life just because you disagree with someone. You shouldn't have
Right.
to walk away from that. So, speaking of family, what do you honestly believe is the root cause for your mother's slander campaign on your husband?
If I had to give a short summary, it would be a mixture of power, control, narcissism, classism, racism. I think that me dating Javon is a
Yeah.
symbol of going against all that she believes, all that she thinks, right? Uh,
Hmm.
all that she taught me in the sense that's how she sees it.
But can you explain that a little more? Like, what was it about Javon that was so out there? You know what I mean? That she couldn't, just mesh with it. I mean, I'm talking to you and I'm getting to know you. And the one thing that I hear in your voice when you speak about your husband, it's just support, love, care, honor. So, what was it about him that would create this kind of reaction?
Yeah. So Javon's a very independent, free thinker. And now in
Mm,
society, that's a threat to others, unfortunately, right?
yeah.
So the minute I met Javon at 14 years old in high school, freshman year, we started dating. So my mother has been around him. We're 30 years old now. She has been around him for that amount of time. She's seen him grow up. She's been around, his family has been around. I think since the very beginning, when we first met, it was, racism in the sense like, why are you dating him? Oh, he grew
Mm,
up where? Because he originally was born in Liberty City, Florida, which is known here as a bad neighborhood in Florida.
yeah.
And his mother uprooted him and moved him to Homestead as a young single mom who lost her husband very young, had to restart her life, raise him, had a phenomenal career, raised her sons from all that trauma, brought him to a good place here in Miami where we live. He went to school, did what he was supposed to do, and she kind of took him from that environment. But I think that was it's strange, but I think that displeased my mother in the sense that she didn't like, okay, well, he's from Liberty City, like very judgmental, which is
Mm,
hypocritical, right? Because she's from the Bronx and was selling
yeah.
drugs and was incarcerated, and my father was the head of a Puerto Rican cartel. So it's a little bit, not a little bit, it's very hypocritical, right?
A little
Um,
bit.
yeah, and it's crazy because Javon has never been involved in that lifestyle. I mean, we went to a very good public school. It's probably number one here in the state of Miami. He got a D1 scholarship to the UConn, great
Okay.
grades, great football player. I went to Boston University. Like, we genuinely grew up as good kids, never sold drugs. He's never been incarcerated, neither have I. So to judge somebody at 14 years old for the neighborhood he came from, or to judge his father or his mother and, be a little bit racist, and I just think it was unfair. And so in the very beginning, it was trying to prove to her, oh, he's worth my time. I want to be with him. He is the good guy. And so it wasn't too crazy for her because she didn't think we were going to last. So at first it was like
Ah.
classism, racism, okay, whatever. She's not going to last. Then as he started to grow up, as he started to, like, us, right? Everybody, we grow up, we start to develop our personality, our traits, we start to learn and grow. He had different experiences. He went to a D1 school where he had situations, right, with, am I going to go to the NFL? Am I not? He started to do research, take these classes in college, learn about himself, the culture, right, the environment that we're in. And then that's when he kind of wanted to veer off what society kind of introduces to us as the correct path. So you go to
Yeah.
college, you do your 9 to 5, you work in the corporate world until you're 62, you retire, you have your family and your kids. Javon was very adamant since we were in college that he didn't want to go to the NFL, that he didn't want to be in a position that pulled him away from his family, from his wife, from his normality, right? He was very adamant, and that's really what attracted to me, and that's how I knew, okay, I'm going to marry this man, because I was like, man, anybody else, they get the opportunity to go to the NFL with all the girls, the groupies, the traveling, they're going to jump on board, right? And he was like, I don't want that. I don't care for that. I care about, starting a career, opening my own business, taking care of my family, because he does still have family in Liberty City,
Hmm.
raising my kids, being present. I don't want to work for a corporate job that pulls me away from my kids. And I didn't know, I knew about a little bit about that because my grandfather's a business owner, right? My mother and all that.
Yeah.
But I was just taught, this is how you're supposed to operate. And so when Javon presented those ideas, when Javon kind of encouraged me to think outside of the norm, that bugged her, because now it's, oh, you're going to listen to him and not me. I'm the CEO of Rock Nation. I know this person. I know that person. Why wouldn't you want to come work with me? Or why wouldn't he want to work with me? It's all about power, control, and classism. And so when she saw that he wasn't like the typical man or young man that would conform and do that, and that it was impacting me in a positive light, she saw that as something negative. She saw it as, oh man, this guy is, I'm going to lose grip and control over my daughter over this guy. That's how she thought.
Wow. Okay. So that's a lot.
I was trying to, I wanted to get to the root.
No, I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking about the gravity of everything I'm hearing. Because typically, the one thing that a mother wants, especially for a daughter, is for her to find the right guy who has the right values, who's going to treat her right and be devoted. And it sounds like that's what you found. It seems like you found the right guy, and he sounds like a really great guy. But more importantly than that, it sounds like your granddad.
Yeah.
Like he sounds like he's the kind of guy that your granddad is like. So and that happens with women. When we have paramount figures in our life, like my dad, I feel the same way about my dad that you feel about your granddad. And I'm not sure how old your granddad is, but my dad was born in the 30s. And he just sounds like the kind of man that was born somewhere between the 30s and the 50s. That's how those old
Yeah,
schoolers were.
1936.
Okay, so
Yeah.
he's right behind my dad. My dad was 33. Those times crafted a certain kind of people. And how lucky for you to find a young man that actually possessed those qualities. So, for me, once again, you can call all the isms in the world. You're happy, right? You were happy. You have to be happy. 16 years. Do you know how many people can't pull that off at
Yeah.
all? And 16 wonderful years, and now all of this. So, okay, well, you know what? Let's just jump right into it. Let's jump into the red flags. Let's talk about the surveillance. Because we really need to start getting to the heart of what's happened to your life. It's been extremely unfair. So, at what point did you start feeling like something was seriously wrong or either being orchestrated or manipulated in your relationship with your mom?
Okay. So I think, honestly, I didn't notice until the police showed up on September 11th, 2023. However, Javon noticed since early 2019. He started to tell me, I'm being followed. He was sending me pictures of men following him, videos. He was very adamant about telling me, your mother, I think your mother doesn't like me. She's having me followed. I'm not sure if she's trying to catch me doing something wrong. I'm working a normal life, living a normal life. And at first, as the young girl who, loves her mother, I didn't believe him, right? I thought, oh, this
Yeah.
guy's being paranoid. It caused arguments in our relationship because he felt that I didn't trust him. And I just thought there's no way. Like, why would she have him followed? Like, there's absolutely no reason because we were going to family events together. She seemed to have a great relationship with him. So I didn't understand the motive. I didn't understand why that was even possible. And
Mm-hmm.
so that caused a little bit of strain. I mean, we almost broke up on multiple times because he's, telling me something, but at the same time, he wants to be careful because he doesn't want to lose me because it's my mother, right? And so that became a difficult situation. I really, really, really started probably noticing, I take that back, not on September 11th, at my job. At my job,
Which
uh,
job?
yeah, so I started working at Iconic Creative Agency with Benny Frahela and Liz Frahela from here, Miami, Florida, in 2020. They're an agency that has contracts with the Nike brand and the Jordan brand. They do events in New York, they do Super Bowl, they do like store activations, like when Nike has a shoe release. This is kind of like what they do as an agency. Uh, the backstory, how I got to them. I think this is important for timeline purposes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I went to school in Boston University, went to school for social work. I originally wanted to be a lawyer, did all these internships and work with lawyers. And then I got offered a position to work with survivors of torture in Miami. Um, and I loved it. I was making nothing, but I started off, helping survivors of torture and domestic violence here in Miami. Worked for this nonprofit, had clients. I worked with asylum seekers, so women who crossed the border, who were trafficked, who were trying to get asylum here in the United States. So I got to work with them, and different population of women, children, and even men, because there's a huge population of men that also suffer from abuse, torture, and all that kind of stuff. And so the pandemic hit. So the organization shut down. I was left without a job. And I was desperate because, again, I grew up with my grandfather. At this time, I was living with my grandfather in
Okay.
2017, because I tried to live with my mother after college, but it was like,
Too much.
yeah, we were clashing. It was too much. So my grandfather, his Alzheimer's started getting worse. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to move in with my grandfather. I'll be happy there. I'll be able to, get a job, save money, take care of him, and I will be away from the toxicity and the conflict. So
Right.
I moved in with him in 2017, lost that job due to the COVID pandemic. And I was looking everywhere for a job. I mean, I would do like part-time jobs at the daycare, stuff like that, but nothing stable because we were in a national pandemic. Uh, at that time, my mother said, hey, I know somebody who's hiring. I can connect you. I was, since very little, adamant I would not work anywhere that had any type of ties or she knew anybody because I wanted to always, earn my positions, earn my title, earn my job. And I never wanted her to say, oh, I got you that job, because I witnessed her do that with my siblings. I witnessed her do that with my grandmother. Like, when she bought my grandmother's house, oh, I bought this house for you. This is my house. Like, very abusive things. And I didn't want to go through that. So the jobs before Iconic, I got myself, even if they were low paying. I was fresh out of college, no experience. So
Right.
of course, you got to start somewhere. And so because I was desperate and she was like, I don't really know her like that. I know her husband. I was like, okay, I'll try it. If it becomes too much of a conflict of interest or it bites me in the butt, I'll leave. Right. So I interviewed with Liz Frahela at Iconic. At the time, it was Liz Frahela, Benny Frahela, and Cindy Boozer, the owners. Was offered an entry level job. I was told I was going to be like the marketing manager, and it was going well. I thought everything was going well. But then I started noticing little things like, oh, why can't you stay late, like after hours? Or, oh, why don't you travel here or travel there? And I was very adamant in the interview that I didn't want to travel. Number one, I wanted to be with my grandfather. Number two, I wanted to be with my dog. And number three, Javon and I opened our business in 2020. So I also wanted to be present to help out with that.
Yeah.
And so they didn't require me to travel in the beginning, but I started noticing that it was weird. Like they were trying to, oh, stay after hours to work this project and come meet this person. And so I was like, I'm being paranoid. So I didn't really, think anything of it. Then the September incident happened when the police told me why they were called and how they found out. I'll pause there because I feel like I've been talking long for you to ask me about that.
Oh
And
no, and don't get me wrong. I'm going to jump in where I need to, but I really want people, I want to make sure that when we get to the end of this conversation, there are no more questions.
okay.
So I want to, especially considering what's going on in the backdrop that everyone doesn't know about. So
Okay.
this is your opportunity. This is the opportunity that you deserve to just have the floor. So please say whatever you need as you need, and we'll pick it up. But so this is what's going on. This is the timeline. We have, as I call it, the pandemic happening. A lot of things were shutting down in the system. You're an independent woman. You're not looking for a free ride. You're not looking for a handout. You just wanted to be able to work and be there with your granddad, do your business. Like these are all normal things for a very awesome, smart, bright person. Like I still don't see how we get to this because you're kind of like the kid that every parent wants.
Thank you.
So, all right. Well, let's just pick it up. So you got the job, and now you're starting to feel like something could be off. It's not feeling right, but you didn't want to think you were paranoid, just like Javon. All of this. So when did it really hit you that okay, this is orchestrated?
Yeah. So I think also I want to mention this on the platform because Dr. Daniel Bobar's team is making it a personal vendetta to use this against me. So there's something I do want to clear up here on your interview now that we started from the pandemic and how I got into Iconic in the timeline.
Yeah.
So I'm hired at Iconic 2020. It's important to know since I was raised by my grandfather and his partner had two kids coming into the relationship. Those two women, because they're not legally married, were seen as my mother's stepsisters, right?
Okay.
Those two women lived in the home as I was growing up. And one of those, I considered them my aunts, even though
Yeah.
biologically they weren't. One of them, my aunt, she was a teacher, principal, taught me how to read, taught me how to write. When I was going through the custody case where my dad was trying to take me away from my grandfather and my mother, I was assigned a guardian ad litem, and she was actually the one who was doing the visitations with the court so that the court could see that I wasn't neglected, that I had somebody to help me with homework, that I could read, that I could write, that I was, in a stable
Very
home.
active in your life.
Exactly. So that was my aunt. I loved her dearly, considered her my aunt. I grew up with her. She passes in 2020 of pancreatic cancer. As you can imagine, that was a hard blow for me because my cousin, her son, was 9 years old, just loses his mother. My grandfather, to him, he just lost a daughter, right? His partner was, she just lost her youngest child, who was very active. Like she would come every weekend to our home after chemo and we would take care of her, or my grandfather's partner would go to her home. So I had a very, very direct relationship with, she was in hospice and I was at home with her son helping with homework. And then with the pandemic, we couldn't visit her in the hospital. So we had to deal with, her dying, not being able to physically see her.
That was
now,
terrible. Yeah.
as she passes away, my grandfather's depressed with Alzheimer's. Her mother, was at the lowest of the low. So now I'm here taking care of my grandfather, taking care of her mother. When her son is coming over at 9 years old, I'm trying to, comfort him while I'm suffering and grieving. And at the same time, I'm trying to get a job and get my life together. So at that point, I was like, I'm going to do grief counseling. I'm going to do grief counseling because I was taking care of everybody else, and it felt like oh my God, you need to take care of yourself. You need to be, it wasn't that I was depressed. No, I was functional. I was acting perfectly. Everything was going well because I was taking care of all of these people. I wanted to do the grief counseling because I wanted to learn tips and strategies on how to help the people in my home deal with grief. I was dealing with a 9-year-old child who lost his mother, and I didn't know how to communicate with him, without striking a chord or triggering him. It was all very new to me because it was the first time I lost somebody so close to me. So that's why I was like, I'm going to do grief counseling. Because all of this is going on. I want to be able to support, these people in the house, and at the same time have tips and tricks. And at the same time, I'm sad. Like, it's not that I have, by the way, I was never in my life diagnosed with a mental illness. I did the grief counseling to grieve her. And that's very important for the context of this, because Dr. Daniel Bobar, you tried to use that grief counselor as a source when in reality, she has never diagnosed me with anything. And she stands very strong in her stance that I have never been suicidal. I have never done drugs. She started seeing me for grief, and I ended up loving her. And would continue doing therapy because I wanted to. Like, as a human being, I think we can all use that, right? We're managing our day to day in our life, but not because I had any diagnosis, just because I really loved her as a counselor. And I was like, why not go once a month, check in with her, tell her what's going on in my life? But she's very adamant, and that's the letter that was provided to the court, that I have no mental illness, that I'm not suicidal,
Right.
never. And that's why I wanted to tell you that piece of my
Yeah.
life that happened, that led me to go to grief counseling, that is being manipulated, unfortunately, and used against me. And I want to really emphasize that.
Well, that's honestly, that's terrible, because what it sounds like is that there were a bunch of extenuating circumstances stacked around you, and then here comes this dream job. You know what I mean? And then you're in there, and then these things are going on, and then you do a responsible thing for your mental well being and health and spirit and for your family. And now it's being weaponized in the future.
Yeah, it's incredible because, without naming any names, without trying to throw anybody under the bus, I witnessed a relative in my family try to commit suicide in front of me because of my aunt's passing. That's why I wanted to learn how to help people in my house, and that's why I ended up doing grief counseling, not because I was was in that
Yeah.
space. No, I'm a firm believer in, like, no matter what happens, God has me. God uplifts me, and there's always somebody that's suffering a harder battle. So me personally, I would never, and I've been fortunate enough to never been in to be in a dark space, to have those type of thoughts and want to do that type of thing. And I stand firm by that. Like, I've never been suicidal. I've never been in that dark space. So I'm fortunate enough that I've learned and I know how to manage my feelings and my emotions and my trauma. And I've never been in that position. So it's crazy because multiple people were aware that I witnessed somebody in my family try to commit suicide in front of me. I stopped it from happening. And that's why I went to grief counseling. And then years later, here comes Dr. Daniel Bobar trying to, weaponize it against me, like you said. But I'm fortunate enough that that doctor, and I won't name her because she's very private with her other clients. I want to be respectful to her, but she's such an amazing counselor that, she could have easily been bought, and she's not. She wasn't. She said, I believe in my license. I believe in my ethics. This girl does not have a mental illness. She's better than 99.9% of all my patients. She's never been suicidal. She's very strong. And, she stood by that and she defended it. And that's what you see in the body cam when he tries to walk away. So people can't pick up the audio. And that's why she wrote the letter in court, and she's adamant about that. So I just wanted to use this moment to touch upon that, because uh I don't want, again, people are trying to use that against me. And in all reality, everybody should see a counselor at one point in their life. So, yeah,
Honey,
again,
2/3 of America needs to be in therapy immediately. And salute to you for seeing what was happening in your environment and grabbing those situations, by the neck and saying, no, we're going to turn this around. I see people in my family hurting. I want it to stop. These are responsible, clear headed choices from a person that's clearly sane. So we're going to just, thank you for that, because I think we're going to have to flip back and forth a couple of times
I
with
know, it's okay.
everything that's going. Well, no, we want to make sure that no one's confused after this.
Hmm.
So here we are at the job. What goes wrong to let you know, hey, this is off.
Right. September 11th, 2023. So Javon and I are in, uh, like we had like it's like an efficiency in the back part of my grandfather's house where we were living. We were living, by the way, Javon wasn't living there. He was coming back and forth from his mother's house to my grandfather's house, but he was dealing with an illness, starting his business. My grandfather saw that we started our business and that I was working, and he was like, "Hey, instead of going back and forth, and instead of you guys getting an apartment, stay in the back efficiency. I'm not renting it out. Save your money. You're here. You guys can take care of me and help me out, and just stack up your money and just stay here." Like that back and forth, and that so I was like, "Are you sure?" He's like, "Of course." Like that, that's what I'm here. You just started your business. You're working at this job. He's sick. You're having to go back and forth. Like, just stay in the back. I'm not renting that back efficiency. And I won't, I'm not going to charge you anything. Save your money. And so that was a great support for us. And I want to clear that up because there's a lot of false narratives on that. So that's what we were living in.
Highlight this. Now, this is your grandfather who's been in your life and been raising you since you were wee high, everything. He knows you, he knows your character. And it sounds like he knew Javon as well. Because I can't see, if Javon were the wrong kind of guy, why he would just welcome him to come and stay there and say, hey, I don't want to dime. You guys will be family, will look out for each other, get your, like, those aren't the kind of things that people do. They don't welcome abusive spirits into their home in that way, especially not the kind of man that you're telling me your grandfather is. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. So granddad was on board with this relationship and wanted to see you guys do well. So here we are, everyone's sick,
Yeah.
and there's a situation.
Yeah, so it's September 11th, 2023. Javon and I are in the back room. We're having an argument about a business call. My grandfather is in the front part of the house. This is very important. The front part of the house is about 100 feet away from the room where we were at with the door closed. My grandfather is in the front of the house with his partner, Olga Sayas, and with in a long, like a fourth cousin of his that was essentially hired by my mother to help take care of him because, as you can imagine, he then became diabetic and it was hard for me to work and take care of him. So she now hires a fourth cousin. She purchases the home next door to my grandfather for this woman and her boyfriend. This woman doesn't have to pay rent. All she has to pay is water. She's getting paid $1,000 a week to essentially drop by and help take care of my grandfather. When his partner, who is seen as his wife, is very much living in the same home and is there and more than capable of taking care of him. But my mother goes above and beyond, hires this fourth cousin, purchases a home next door for her and her boyfriend because they're not married, hires him to help. And so her name is Milailis Garcia. She's in the front of the house, Milailis Garcia, in the living room. My grandfather's in the living room, and Olga Saya is in the living room. They're all watching movie. Javon and I are 100 feet away in the second part. This is the back part of the house, essentially the backyard.
Oye, un hombre, coño, que fuerte.
I'm saying that, but I'm telling you.
So I'm like, yo, I have to do something else. I have to use other people. We have to figure out something else. Another, whatever, it's another voice.
Yelling at the one yeah.
But it's just yelling, just me yelling, being too damn stupid. Something that could change my life. So that's the only thing I got.
Where's the right? That's the
The point is, I think that moment it was wrong. No, that did not happen.
But I can slide. I'm gonna get up out of here.
Come on, but no, it's not. The cameras are out.
Nobody touch nobody. I don't touch nobody's cameras in there. All of that.
It's gonna suck, but you may want to
Yeah, I got
look into a different business line.
Yeah.
The video that we saw, the efficiency was at the back. There was this common area. There was another door leading, and the house was on the other side of that.
Yes, so the common area that you see, that's the terrace. That part of, yeah, that's the terrace of the house. That's really you walk through another door and that's the backyard. But the door that you see is the room to the efficiency. Okay?
So
And
just
so-
to be clear, no one was close by to be able to hear or, articulately say, this is what was said, this is what happened. At best, they might hear volume, but nothing. Yeah, okay, got it.
No, and it's important to note that none of them speak English. Olga speaks a little bit, but they can't effectively communicate or effectively understand a full-on English conversation. And it's very important to note that all three of them have hearing issues, and that and that we're over 100 feet away. There's a terrace, there's a wall, there's a door, and then there's a hallway, and then that's where they're sitting. So all of that is in between where Javon and I are and where they are. No windows where they can see, nothing. So that's very important to know.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah, so we're in this room, September 11, 2023. We're having an argument in the room about business. There's a bed in between us. So I am on the other side of the room. Javon is on the other side of the room, like towards the entry door, sitting down in a chair. So there's a bed, a whole entire queen bed in between both of us. So we have maybe 6 to 7 feet of distance with a bed in between. And we're arguing and whatnot. Out of nowhere, Olga and Milaitis storm into the room screaming. Olga is grabbing Javon's arm. Milaitis is just standing at the door. I'm on the other side. And Olga's like, no, don't hit her. Screaming, get off of her. Like pulling his arm. And he's like, what's wrong with you? What are you talking? Like he's screaming, and then I'm screaming, like I'm on the other side. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then she tells me in Spanish, your mother called me saying that he's beating you up. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We're here arguing, and I'm all the way on this side. What are you talking about? And she's like, oh, so nothing's happening. He's not beating you up, nothing. And I go, no, nothing is happening. And like at this point, she's like, oh no, but she said, like she's screaming, getting crazy. You have to understand, she's also like pulling his arm and almost like trying to hit him. So he's raising his voice, get off of me, because he's essentially being attacked.
Yeah.
And he doesn't understand what's going on. And so when she realizes and she calms down that nothing is really happening, she leaves the room with Milaitis. And then he's just like, what was that? I'm like, I have no idea. A few minutes pass by, and Miami-Dade Police Department storm into the room, and they tell us, we received a call that you're getting beat up nonstop. We need to separate you guys and talk.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Hold on. Wait a second. Because I want to make sure that everybody understands what's being said here. So you and your boyfriend of at least, actually more than 10 years at this point, who everyone knows, who your grandfather invited you, all of a sudden, he's pulling a DV on you. People have to come running in because they were called. Your mother wasn't there, right?
No, so it's important to note that my mother was in New York City.
She was in New York when this incident happened.
Correct.
And she was able to call your family and tell them that they needed to come and rescue you. And then the police showed up too.
Yes.
From an argument over a business thing.
Yes.
Oh, wow, this is okay. Please take us deeper down the rabbit hole.
So police separate us, and then the officer tells me, you know, we got a call that he's beating you nonstop. Have you been hit? Are you okay? And I'm like, what? He hasn't hit me. I have never been beaten. I just woke up. I have a bonnet on my head with pajamas in the body cam. Like I look crazy in the body cam because it was not like, what? How did I just get beat up and my bonnet is still in place? Like, what is? I didn't have a bra, nothing. Like, I'm like, ma'am, I just woke up. We were arguing. Nobody hit anybody. So she has me. I had a short sleeve on. You'll see it in the body cam. Yeah. She has me extend my arms. She checks me for bruises. She has me turn around. She checks my neck. She said, you don't have anything. I go, I'm trying to tell you I didn't get hit. And I don't know I wasn't even crying. Because what you'll see is the witnesses' statements is that my face was red from being slapped and choked, and that I was crying hysterically, and that I was screaming, don't hurt me. I had not one tear in the body cam, not one mark. I was more embarrassed that she was interviewing me without a bra and with a bonnet on than anything. I was just like, ma'am, like, can I go get my bra? Like, you'll hear me say that. I go put on my bra now, give her my ID. She checks me. She even writes on the incident report, which I will provide to you, no bruises, no evidence of violence, like they were saying. Because when you call in 911 and you say she's getting beat up nonstop, that's why they rushed and got there so quickly. If somebody is getting beat up nonstop, that's punches, that's choking, that's, all of the above. And I had no signs of that.
They have a term for that. When people call in the police and give these that's swatting.
Mm-hmm.
When you call the police with a fake emergency, making it sound like someone's life is in danger, they show up like someone's life is in danger. And the truth is, if that officer hadn't have been level-headed, they could have come in that door with a completely different attitude with hearing stuff like that.
That is so important for you to know, because originally when they came in, I was yelling and Jamal's like, calm down, I don't want to get shot. And so I was like, then I realized, oh man, I forgot, because they're getting a call that I'm being beat up nonstop. So they're thinking this man is aggressive. They stormed in to the door. And so you'll see that on the body cam. And so that's when I knew, okay, Demoree, take it down a notch, because his life is potentially in danger due to the false police call. And, police was just doing their job, right? If they're getting called and somebody is saying, my daughter or whoever is getting beat up nonstop, that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to respond quickly. They're supposed to take it seriously. And so it's unfortunate that, police resources were abused in that way, and their time and their energy, because somebody else who needs to be rescued could have been rescued at that exact time. But again, she checked me. She saw no bruises. The other officer interviewed Javon. You'll see that in the body cam. He was explaining everything. They were like, okay, there's nothing here. In the body cam, you'll see the officer tells the female officer, are you going to give her a domestic violence brochure? Because when you call in for DV, they do the brochure and the resources and all that. And she's like, I don't even think she needs a brochure. Like, nothing happened. And the officer was like, well, whatever, just give it to her. It's, I guess, a standard procedure. But they were in the camera admitting that they knew this wasn't DV. They left. And as they're leaving, by the way, you can see the so-called witnesses who said you'll see that they changed their story on 3 times, and I'll provide that to you. And I will provide the affidavits that they gave and their stories that they changed. They said that they came in with a machete because they thought Javon was going to murder everyone in the home and that they were scared for their lives. And mind you, the body cam shows them laying down in a recliner couch watching soap operas.
Please don't tell me Telenova.
Telenovela, yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God! It sounds like they were giving, you know, the accounts of what they had been watching more so than what was happening in the home. So at this point in time, you know, even though Mama's in New York, she's watching.
Yeah, because the police officer, she didn't say this on the body cam, but she told me, she said, we got the call. She's watching you from New York. There's a camera in here. If I were you guys, I would move out of here because clearly the people who live in here have a problem with you guys. And that's what started me, Javon and I's manhunt for an apartment or a townhouse to move out. That officer telling me that, because I was like, a camera? Where? And that's when I was like, okay, she's taking it up 10 notches now.
So now we have evidence that you're being, you know, surveillanced in your private living space with your partner, who's now your husband, who you've been with since you were 14 years old. Was there any other infiltration into your personal devices? Was the camera in your living space the only thing, or was there more?
I want to emphasize something for the public that is being misshared. So the camera, the audio, these fake audios that they're producing from supposedly the 9/11 incident, 9/11/2023, where Javon did not get arrested, that incident that they're claiming that I said, don't hurt me and this and that in that audio. I want the record to reflect, and we have proof of this, that camera was not in a common area. That camera was in our bathroom facing our shower in a closet. And I want yes, it was in our closet. We had a closet in the shower that faces directly into the shower, into the toilet.
And so someone installed a camera in there to be able to watch what you would. Okay, now that is just I'm sorry, because I'm doing my best to keep this as civil as possible, because this interview isn't about trashing your mom. It's not. This interview is about making sure that the details of your life and the stories that are being told about your life are accurately corrected, because it's a lot of public perception that allows law enforcement and the judicial system to not take certain things seriously. You know, I've had my own experiences, and I've shared a few things with you, Demoree. But for someone to put a camera in a space in your life where you are guaranteed to be nude, this is you nude, this is Javon nude. This is a total invasion of privacy, and there's no excuse for it. If you're putting up cameras to say, hey, I think something funny is going on and I want to keep, so why would you need that in that space? I'm sorry. If I were you, I'd have been totally freaked out too.
Yeah. So that's what I want to emphasize on this platform, that misinformation is being shared. That audio, that's why if you notice that when they play the audio, it's like a white wall with a shelf. People don't know it's a shelf. That's my shoe shelf. Full disclosure. That's my closet. That closet, the doors. Remember, I grew up in humble beginnings with my grandfather, so it's not anything fancy. So it's like a little closet door that's pried open that you can see me shower, use the bathroom, Javon, like that's not a common area and that's illegal. And so it's very easy. And I want the audience to note this. September 11, 2023, she's producing audio, but where is the video? If I was attacked, if you're saying I was abused and you installed the camera, where is the video? Why are you not producing the video? Why? because it's not convenient for her, because it did not happen. It's easy to manipulate audio, right? And I want the record to reflect that the evidence that is circulating online, I'm going to quote unquote evidence, right? And that was submitted to the state, this was a 30-minute incident. She has sent to the state attorney's office 6 different audio clips with 5-minute increments. If you're not editing, if you're not using AI voices, then why don't you produce the full 30-minute audio clip? And why don't you unedited, and why don't you produce the video? Why? Because if she does that, it'll show that I was never hit. It'll show that none of the stuff he was saying to me, or like the verbal abuse stuff that's going around there, wasn't said. What people need to realize, that technology, when you have money and you have resources and you have connection, audio is very easily manipulated. And when you hear it, if you're smart and you have experience with this kind of thing, and people who know Javon, they're like, he doesn't speak like that. And you can tell sometimes it skips, or the voices come in and out, and then it sounds like he's different people. Yeah, so I want to put that on the record, that audio is not what it was, and that she had the capabilities to produce a video, and she did it in court. She did not in court, because there was no attack on me. I didn't get hit at all. There was none of that. We were tormented. The kids are crying. Javon's now getting arrested. I'm like, where's your warrant? Like, what is he getting arrested for? My mother-in-law name drops. Desiree Perez sent you. Desiree Perez sent you, didn't she? You see their faces like kind of step back. He gets arrested. And then the next day he makes bail and we get him out. But we don't know. Like, at this point, I called her when I'm at the farm. This is the last time I spoke to her. I said, did you get him arrested? Yes, I did, because he's an abuser, this and this. I go, what is wrong with you? I'm like, you better call all your friends at the police department, and you better get him released, or I'm going to speak and tell everybody who you really are. Body cam will show that retired former police officer Jeffrey Brown, and I'm naming it here because I'm not afraid of anybody, and they need to know that they're going, they're being held accountable for their participation in an orchestration of having my husband falsely arrested in front of kids. Jeffrey Brown says in the body cam, which I want the record to show, in mostly all the police reports, my mother lies to police and identifies herself as Desiree Perez, my aunt.